Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. So again, welcome to our subject. And for today, we are about to discuss non-current assets held for sale. So this is your instructor, Noel Bergonia. So just sit back, relax, take down notes. And if you do have questions, please let me know on our respective chat boxes. Okay? Sige, I think we can now start with our discussion. So this particular topic is actually brought to you by IFRS number 5. Okay, so this is the standard for the non-current assets held for sale and continuing discontinued operations rather. No? So before we start discussing non-current assets held for sale, let us first define ano ba itong non-current assets natin. So typically, no, it becomes a non-current asset based on IAS number 1 if your asset does not meet the definition of being a current asset. Ano-ano nga ba yung mga apat na criteria natin to become a current asset? Hindi ba they are for the purposes dapat of trading, ano pa? They should be part of our normal operating cycle or they are realizable within 12 months, 'di ba? At the end of the reporting period. Okay, tapos it should be cash and cash equivalents unless restricted, 'di ba? So yun yung sinabi under IAS number 1, presentation of financial statements. So but no, in this case, okay, an non-current asset does not meet any of the definition of becoming a current asset. So this could be an individual assets o kaya naman a disposal group. So ano po ba itong disposal group na to? So as defined as well in IFRS number 5, a disposal group is a group of assets to be disposed of either by sale or otherwise together as a group in a single transactions, and of course the liabilities directly associated with them that will be transferred in the transaction. So pwedeng, let's say for example, PPEs, collective group of assets na PPEs, equipment, machineries, 'di ba, land or building, okay, that was being disposed of by sale, and they are in a single transaction. So that would be a disposal group. Okay? So bakit nga ba natin dinidefine ulit ano yung non-current asset? So it's actually just a reminder for us that what we are discussing right now is a non-current asset held for sale. So before it would be classified as held for sale, its former classification would be a non-current asset. Okay? So right now, let's define non-current assets held for sale in accordance with IFRS number 5. Okay, so based on paragraph number 6 and 7, so an entity shall classify a non-current assets or disposal group na nabanggit natin kanina in the previous slide as held for sale if its carrying amount will be recovered principally through sale transaction rather than continuing use. So yun pala yun, Kaya siya maika-classify as held for sale because our particular non-current asset or disposal group will be recovered na lang via sale rather than continuing use. Pag continuing use po kasi, it means that it will stay in its original classification. So let's say for example, it's a PPE, then it will stay as PPE until such time that you have already over depreciated or meaning na ubos mo na yung depreciation ng asset na yon. But in this case, you are intending to sell it. Okay, so mamaya we will give the criteria, how can we say that it is a sale. So this particular non-current assets held for sale must be available for immediate sale in its present condition, subject to terms that are usual and customary for sales of such assets. So again, that asset should be readily available. Hindi po ito inventory, Kasi kung inventory to, it was discussed to you under IAS number 2, di ba? Pero dito, it was used in the operations. So it could be a PPE or some other non-current assets. And then afterwards, they are immediately available for sale. Okay, in their present conditions, okay, so they would be classified already as held for sale. And of course, do not forget that the particular sale, okay, must be highly probable. That's in accordance with paragraph number 7. Dapat the sale is highly probable because as mentioned kanina, okay, we will recover our asset, no, via the sale transaction. Now, how could we say that our sale would be highly probable? So there are some premises no under paragraph number 8 of IFRS number 5, no? When can we say that the sale is highly probable? Okay, so we can have it as meron tayong mnemonics dyan, kaso. Okay? Kaso. Okay, so tignan natin. So first would be there is the appropriate level of management, okay, must be committed. So that's the first one. So the management no is committed to a plan no to sell the asset or the disposal group. Okay, so they should be committed. Kasi if they are committed in continuous use, then we could not say that the sale is highly probable. Okay, next would be aside from the commitment, no, to the sale, okay, there should be an active program to locate the buyer. Okay, because we want to complete the plan. Okay, that's why we are locating the buyer. Okay. Next would be the assets or the disposal group must be actively marketed for a sales price at sorry. The asset or disposal group must be actively marketed for sale at a price that is reasonable, okay, in relation to its current fair value. So as you all know naman, once we sell particular asset, no, it's either the selling price set up by the management or the company, or depending upon its fair value. Okay, so as indicated, no, it will be highly probable if the sales price, okay, is reasonable in relation to its current fair value. Now, how reasonable it is, how do we assess for it? Okay, actually, that will be depending upon the assessment na po of the company. But most of the time naman, the selling price set up by the management is near to the current fair value. Okay, so that's the third one. Next would be the sale should be expected to qualify for recognition as completed sale within 1 year. Okay, so within 1 year from the date of classification. So there is only a limited time no, for us to dispose that asset. It should be at least 1 year. Okay, yung ating disposal from the date of reclassification. Sir, is there a chance na pwede po siya mag-extend ng more than 1 year? Okay, let's see mamaya in the succeeding slide kung meron bang provisions under IFRS number 5 for somehow extension of a period no more than 1 year. Okay, pero technically under paragraph number 8, okay, to become a highly probable sale, it should be within 1 year, no? Na sale, okay, from the date of reclassification. Next, we have actions required to complete the plan should indicate that it is unlikely that significant changes to the plan will be made or that the plan will be withdrawn. Okay? So, ayun lang naman, no? Unlikely that there would be a change in the management intention. Kasi, di ba, if there would be a change in management intention, then most likely it will not be classified anymore as held for sale. Halimbawa, no? Biglang nagbago yung isip natin. Nagplan tayo na ibenta natin, pero at some certain point in time, it will now become kumbaga an asset that will be continuously used. Okay, so paano gagawin natin? So later no on the succeeding part of this discussion, no, we will also be talking about that. What if there is a significant change and the management does not want anymore to sell that non-current asset? Okay, but for it to be highly probable, no, unlikely yung significant changes. And then lastly, no, the probability, okay, of shareholders approval if required in the jurisdiction. Okay, ano lang naman to, no? If required lang in our jurisdiction, should be considered as part of the assessment whether the sale is highly probable. So ayun, it depends upon, aside from the jurisdiction, no, the management's intention as well as the management processes, no, if we need to still get some shareholders approval. Okay? So yan po yung ating kasup, no? So how can we say that the sale is highly probable? Okay? And again, it needs to be highly probable para mag-stay siya or maklasify po siya as non-current assets held for sale or disposal group. Okay? So now, no, on our next slide, Okay, nabanggit kasi natin dito that our sale should be completed within 1 year. So what will happen if there is somehow extension? Will it be possibly na classified pa rin siya as held for sale? So let's find out. Okay, under paragraph number 9 of the same standard, no, events or circumstances may extend the period to complete the sale beyond 1 year. Oh, ayun naman pala eh. Pwede naman pala na magkaroon ng extension beyond 1 year. So an extension of period required to complete the sale does not preclude an asset, okay, or disposal group from being classified as held for sale. Ito po yung kailangan niyong tandaan para ma-allow yung extension na more than 1 year, okay, for us to classify still as non-current assets held for sale or disposal group if the delay is caused by events or circumstances beyond the entity's control and there is a sufficient evidence that the entity remains committed to its plan to sell the assets or disposal group. So ayun naman pala na. Okay? The delay should be not on the part of the entity, no? It should be beyond its control. Okay, let me give you an example. Halimbawa, no, in this current situation, no, so baka kaya hindi na dispose yung asset even though we are very committed to sell it immediately, it's because of the quarantine situation, di ba? So hindi pwede mag-transfer from one area to another area. Okay, so that's beyond the control of the entity. So if still they are committed to sell it, then we can still stay yung classification natin as non-current assets held for sale, okay, even if it's beyond 1 year. Okay? O kaya naman, baka nagkaroon ng, let's say for example, typhoon or even some particular fortuitous events, no, beyond the control of the entity, then that's the time we're in. Again, no, that delay would just be okay, no, to classified pa rin as a non-current assets held for sale. Okay, so tatandaan yan, that is in paragraph number 9. Dapat it should be beyond the control of the entity. Kung controllable naman po ito, no, so dahil lang baka mamaya nagbago lang intention ng management o kaya naman may problema on the part of the entity that they are in control of it pala, no? And there is an evidence na hindi naman beyond control ng entity yung nangyari, then ayun, no, it would affect the classification. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, ha? Again, if you do have questions, please let me know. Okay? So in addition to that, no, so meron din po nakalagay under the appendix of IFRS number 5, no, appendix B. So an exception to the 1-year requirement in paragraph 8. So yung paragraph 8 kanina is yung highly probable, di ba? That it should be disposed within 1 year shall therefore apply in the following situation which such events or circumstances arise. So ito yung mga circumstances na binabanggit. No? At the date an entity commits itself to sell an non-current assets, it reasonably expects that other, not a buyer, will impose condition on the transfer of the asset or disposal group that will extend the period required to complete the sale. So ayun, no, baka possible na mayroong impose conditions, no, on the transfer of assets and kailangan pa nilang i-fulfill yung mga imposed conditions na yon. So let's say for example, ay bago nyo ibenta yan sa amin, no, typically, baka kailangan mo na ng documentary requirements, no? Kailangan mo nang tapusin. Okay, then that's sabi dito, no? That's still okay, no? To be classified because it's an exception under Appendix B. And action necessary to respond with those conditions cannot be initiated until after the firm purchase commitment is obtained. Okay, so ayan, may commitment naman siya to, ano, diba, to sell it. And a firm purchase commitment is highly probable within 1 year. Okay, so don't be confused, no? So it's an exception to the 1-year requirement, okay, but the purchase commitment, okay, the firm's purchase commitment is still highly probable within 1 year. Okay, they want to sell it within 1 year, but unfortunately because of nga po imposed conditions, then it would have some sort of exceptions on the 1-year requirement natin. Okay, another is an entity obtains a firm's purchase commitment, and as a result, a buyer or another unexpected imposed conditions on the transfer of a non-current assets previously classified as held for sale that will extend, okay, the period required to complete the sale. Okay, so parang ito rin yung kanina, no? And timely actions necessary to respond the conditions have been taken. So ayun, may actions naman na, okay, dapat na nagagawa, okay, to fulfill that condition, and favorable resolution of delaying factor is expected. Okay? So yan lang naman yung mga items din na nababanggit under Appendix B, no, which would cost, no, the exceptions for 1-year requirement. Okay, meron pa, last na. Okay, during the initial 1-year period, circumstances arise that were previously considered unlikely. Okay, as a result, an uncurrent assets or disposal group previously classified as held for sale is not sold by the end of the period. Okay, so meron tayong hindi ini-expect during the time that we have committed the plan to sell, no? Okay, meron tayong mga hindi naman in-expect doon, and then during the time of the 1-year period, merong mga circumstances na unlikely naman na hindi natin in-expect, then that will also be a cause, no? But take note ha, it should be based dun sa kaninang paragraph number 9, no? It should be beyond the entity's control. And during the 1 year, no, the entity took action to respond in this change circumstances. Okay, so ganun pa rin, no, there should be an action made by the entity. Okay, doon sa mga tatlong or previous 2 slides natin, okay, paulit-ulit na sinasabi doon that the entity should have taken an action, okay, on those circumstances, and the non-current assets or disposal group is being actively marketed at a price that is reasonable. So ito ay isa rin sa requirement kanina under paragraph number 8, no, given the change in circumstances. And yung criteria natin under paragraph number 7, ano ulit yung under paragraph number 7? So it should be recovered or recoverable within 1 year, no? Principally through sale action, or the sale is highly probable. And yung paragraph 8, yan yung kasop kanina na ating indicators that the sale is highly probable or being met pa rin. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, no? So again, okay, after discussing I think 4 slides, no, based on IFRS number 5, no, the major requirement is that the sale, okay, should be made within 1 year. But again, if there are beyond the entity's control ng mga circumstances, okay, exceptions to the rule of 1 year can be applied, and the entity should have taken an action on those circumstances, and still that particular non-current assets or disposal group should be actively marketed pa rin po at a price that is reasonable. Okay, and it still need to meet yung requirement natin under paragraph number 7 and 8 of the same standard. Okay, so again, if you do have questions, please let me know. Okay, so that's more on the held for sale. Okay, so mamaya babalikan natin yan because our next topic, which is also under IFRS number 5, is non-current assets held for distribution naman. Okay, so bakit kaya, no, held for distribution? So a non-current assets, okay, or disposal group is classified as held for distribution to owners. So distribution, kanina kasi sale to a buyer. Ito naman, distribution to the owner. So possible pala na yung ating mga non-current assets can be also distributed to the owners, no, when number 1, the entity is committed to distribute the asset to the owner. So ganun pa rin, no? There should be a commitment to distribute that asset or disposal group to the owners. Then the asset must be available for immediate distribution at its present conditions, and the distribution must be highly probable. Now, the entity should have also taken an action to complete the distribution. Okay, nag-initiate na rin po tayo nun, and expected to be completed within 1 year from the date of classification. So parang kanina rin on the held for sale, no, the disposal should be within 1 year from the date of classification, and actions required to complete the distribution should indicate that unlikely that significant changes, okay, will happen. So actually parang hawig din talaga ito doon sa ating held for sale kanina, that there should be unlikely significant changes that we will not distribute, okay, this particular asset or disposal group. And the probability of shareholders approval, if in case needed, no, based on management's discretion or jurisdiction, okay, could be considered part of the assessment natin for the distribution to be highly probable. Okay? So ayun lang po, no. So it's either sale kanina or held for distribution to owners. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, no. So they are all part of our classified non-current assets held for sale or distribution under IFRS number 5. But at the end of the day, as you all know, no, parehas naman whether it's held for sale or held for distribution, it will be recognized in the future if completed na yung ating plan to distribute or to sale within 1 year, or just in case extension would apply. By the way, yung extension din po kanina, okay, applies here on the distribution, no? Pero most of the time naman, no, based on experiences and looking into financial statements, no, the distribution could be made naman usually within 1 year, unless there are again fortuitous event and beyond the control entities na mga events. Okay? So after knowing, no, the basis of how do we classify non-current assets as held for sale or held for distribution, right now let's talk about naman po, no, how do we measure them. Okay, so let's talk about the measurement of non-current assets or disposal group held for sale, okay, or even held for distribution mamaya. Okay, an entity, okay, ito combine na rin pala to, sorry. An entity shall measure a non-current asset or disposal group classified as held for sale or held for distribution to owners at, so tandaan nyo to, the valuation is lower of its carrying amount. So if your non-current asset was a PPE and it uses cost model, as you all know, its carrying amount was the cost less accumulated depreciation or accumulated impairment, no, from the time of reclassification. Okay? Or kung ito naman po ay revaluation model, then the carrying amount, no, as indicated in our revaluation model, no, na fair value less subsequent accumulated depreciation or accumulated impairment. Okay, comparing that carrying amount, okay, to our fair value less cost to sell. So yun lang naman titignan natin, the lower between the two. Okay, so a fair value, okay, just like what we have discussed in our previous na mga discussions, no, is a price, okay, that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly transaction between a market participant at the measurement date. Okay, so it should be available in the market. By the way, we have already discussed that under IFRS 13, no, yung mga priority under how do we account for the fair value, diba? So pwedeng yung mga observable inputs, no, mga unobservable, or the market participants and the like, okay? Or the similar assets. So again, please remember those that we have discussed in the previous, since they are connected here. Okay, but anyways, no, we need to deduct cost to sell. So as you all know, cost to sell are incremental costs directly attributable to the disposal of the assets. Okay, so it excludes yung ating finance costs and income tax expense. So please take note of this, just like what we have in biological assets, no? Since we're also valuing it as fair value less cost to sell, and also in the recoverable amount of our revaluation, in our PPE, di ba? So meron tayo doon that the recoverable amount is the higher between the value in use and fair value less cost to sell. So ganun po rito ulit yung ating cost to sell. Okay? And please take note, class, that an entity shall not depreciate or amortize a non-current asset while it is classified as held for sale. So meaning kung yung original classification niya as non-current asset is, let's say, PPE, which is depreciable, okay, pag siya po ay na-meet niya na yung requirement ng IFRS 5 to become held for sale, stop depreciation na tayo or even amortization. Okay? So bawal nyo na po siyang i-amortize kasi we are expecting already to sell it, okay, within the 1-year period of time. Okay? Then please take note that kanina nabanggit natin that in the cases in Appendix B at saka paragraph number 9 which allows extension beyond 1 year. Okay, so just in case lang po na mayroong ganong circumstances, when the sale was expected beyond 1 year, the entity shall measure the cost to sell at their present value. Okay, so let's say for example, within 2 years pa dahil may kagaya nito pandemic, there are restrictions in travel, or even baka yung delivery or that particular sale is being hindered by an event that is beyond the control of the entity, please take note that okay, it should be computed at present value yung ating cost to sell. Sir, paano po namin present value? So yung ini-expect nyo na, di ba halimbawa, after 1.5 year, okay, yung ating, let's say, in-expect kasi nag-extend nga tayo or even 2 years. So just present value it using single payment. So yung cost to sell nyo na babayaran after that 1.5 year or 2 years, depending upon the situation na nangyari, okay, then let's say 100,000. So given the interest rate, okay, na available, okay, then you compute it using the single payment. So using the extended year na meron po tayo. Okay? So I hope that is clear, and I hope then that you can still remember what you have done in computing the present value in your other assets discussion. Okay? So ayan, basta pag more than 1 year. Pag within 1 year lang naman, okay, wala naman naganap na expectation, then the cost to sell will be as is. No need for us to present value it. Okay? And any increase in the present value. So 'di ba, kailangan nating i-meet or i-amortize from the present value to the future value natin. Then ang sabi po dito under IFRS 5 is that we will be recognizing it in the profit or loss as financing cost. So interest expense natin 'yon, the difference between the present value at saka yung future value given. Okay? Then, okay, in case that there would be an impairment loss, okay, sir, paano nagkakaroon ng impairment loss? So there is an impairment loss when the entity initially, okay, or even subsequently write down the assets or disposal group to fair value less cost to sell. Remember, di ba, it was recorded at carrying amount in our books. Tapos nagva-valuation tayo based on what we have discussed kanina as the lower between the carrying value and fair value less cost to sell. So just in case na may lower yung ating fair value less cost to sell, halimbawa 100,000 yung carrying value, and then yung ating fair value less cost to sell is let's say 90,000. Okay? So ibig sabihin we need to write down, we need to impair. Mamaya we will have sample journal entries for just like this na circumstances. Okay? So ayan, may impairment loss tayo, okay, which is the difference of the amount written down, okay, from carrying amount to the fair value less cost to sell, or baka initially na-recognize mo siya as fair value less cost to sell pero as time goes by kasi pwedeng at the end of the reporting period hindi pa naman na-dispose, the next valuation if you have one, then okay, bumaba pa ulit, then that would be an additional impairment loss to be recognized, and of course the impairment loss will be recognized in our profit or loss, okay, as impairment loss. Then just in case, baka biglang tumaas, okay, bumaba, nagkaroon ng impairment loss, pero biglang tumaas, okay? So an entity shall recognize again for subsequent increase in fair value less cost to sell of an asset, but not in excess of cumulative impairment loss that have been recognized. So parang hawig ito doon sa mga previously discussed na assets, pero hindi natin china-charge yung excess increase pa. Okay? So just in case lang na may subsequent increase in the fair value less cost to sell, okay, of an asset, it should not exceed yung cumulative impairment loss. So ang limit lang natin is kung initially meron tayong na-recognize na impairment loss, okay, then that's the time we're in pag nagkaroon po tayo ng subsequent increase in the fair value less cost to sell, then what would happen is, again, no, it would give us only a gain that is until the cumulative impairment loss recognized. So hindi siya pwede mag-exceed. So halimbawa, ang cumulative impairment loss is 10,000, tapos just in case yung difference ng carrying amount at saka nung fair value less cost to sell natin was, let's say for example, 11,000. So ang reversal lang po natin would be amounting to 10,000. So yun lang yung gain. Yung excess na 1,000, hindi na po i-recognize. Okay? So let's talk about that later in our journal entry examples. Okay? And then, another that you need to take into account, an impairment loss or any subsequent gain, okay, recognized for disposal group shall reduce or increase the carrying amount of the non-current assets, okay, in the group. Okay, so ayun nga po, as mentioned to you a while ago, no, with regards to write down at saka yung reversal of gain, or sorry, reversal of impairment loss or baka nagkaroon ng gain, it would affect the current recording value ng ating particular non-current assets. Okay? And then, eto, just in case that you have a disposal group, so impairment loss shall be allocated by reducing the carrying amount of the assets of the unit, okay, in the following order. So just in case, ayun, no, pag may disposal group, okay, how do we allocate the impairment loss? Kasi hindi naman siya, it should be distributed daw under paragraph number 104. So first, no, it should reduce the carrying amount of any goodwill. So just like in intangible assets, no, CGU, pag yung CGU natin merong goodwill, okay, any impairment loss shall be first charged to goodwill if there is a goodwill in our cash generating unit. Okay, ubusin mo na yung goodwill. And then kung wala pong goodwill, then what you're going to do is to allocate the impairment loss, no, based on the pro rata carrying amount of each assets in the disposal group. So yung carrying amount, yung pagbabasihan natin. Okay, you can refer back to our CGU discussion in the subsequent recognition of intangible assets for the pro rata distribution of impairment loss. No? So it's just like this lang din naman. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, no? So that's some of our theories, no? Mamaya dadagdagan pa natin yan. Okay, so let's give an example muna para maintindihan natin yung na-discuss natin. Okay? Sige. So let's have example 1. So you are asked to prepare the entries from 2018 to 2021. So on January 1, 2018, Iniwan Corporation acquired an equipment at a cost of 750,000. So this is the original cost to be used in the ordinary course of business. So since it is to be used, it meets the criteria pa lang of PPE, di ba? Kasi it's used in the production process natin or in the current operations of the business. Okay, so it will be subjected first to the PPE requirement. Okay, and the equipment has an estimated useful life of 10 years and a residual value of 75,000. So let's give an entry muna on January 1, 2018. So debit equipment, 750,000, credit cash, 750,000. So that's the initial recognition. And then, of course, no, after a year, December 31, 2018, okay, so we need to depreciate it over 1 year. So the depreciation on December 31, 2018 would be debit depreciation expense, okay, 67,500, and credit accumulated depreciation, 67,500. So that's the depreciable amount of 750 minus 75,000 residual value divided by 10. Okay, it's a straight line method, so 67,500. Okay. So at the end of 2018, our carrying value is 682,500. Okay, so wala pa namang classification na held for sale kasi as mentioned here in the second paragraph, on January 1, 2021 pa po na reclassify. So let's just continue pa rin yung pagde-depreciate. So on December 31, 2019, so debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 67,500. Okay, the carrying value in 2019 is now 615,000 na. And a year before or a day before no nung ating classification as held for sale, we depreciate still on December 31, 2020. So debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 67,500. Our carrying value on December 31, 2020 is now 547,500. Okay? So yan po yung ating carrying amount which later be used no in identifying the measurement of our held for sale classified on January 1, 2021. Okay? So punta na tayo on um, January 1, 2021. At the time, basahin natin na nag-reclassify. So on January 1, 2021, the equipment was now classified as held for sale. So it meets malamang na yung requirement natin under paragraph 7 and 8. Okay, and on such date, the fair value less cost of disposal was estimated at 285,000. Okay, on June 30, the equipment was sold for 225,000. So let's see. No? So first, on the reclassification ng January 1, 2021, so debit equipment held for sale. By the way, dito hindi ko pa ni-recognize immediately as 285 siya ha. Pero kanina class, in December 31, 2020, ang kanyang carrying value ay ito, 547,500. So mamaya magre-recognize tayo ng impairment kasi mas bumaba siya to 285,000. So gradually ko lang ginawa yung entry kaya we start with the debit to equipment held for sale, okay, which is the carrying value na 547,500. Then dahil i-recognize na natin siya in PPE, so you debit the accumulated depreciation na 202,500 and then we have your equipment na 750,000 to be credited. Okay? So ngayon naman, we will now have no the impairment. Okay, kasi from 547,500 na atin pong carrying value, no? It should be written down to the fair value less cost to sell na 285,000. So the impairment was 262,000. So debit impairment loss 262,500 and credit equipment held for sale 262,500. So that's the difference of your carrying value, okay, and the fair value less cost to sell. Okay, kasi mas mababa yung fair value less cost to sell, which is as mentioned to you a while ago under paragraph number 15, di ba, that we should recognize our held for sale asset as the lower between the carrying value and fair value less cost to sell. Okay? Then, that's our January 1, no, at the time of reclassification. So pag tinanong ko kayo, magkano na yung valuation natin ng ating held for sale, so that's already the 285,000. Okay? So I hope that that is clear ha. Again, if you do have questions, please let me know. Okay? And then, no, it was sold on January 30, 2021. So mas bumaba pa siya kasi naging 225,000. So at the time of disposal, okay, we will have a loss. So we will be debiting cash, the 225,000 that we have received. Then we debit the loss on sale, which is 60,000. Saan nanggaling yon? That was the cash received and the fair value less cost to sell in January 1, 2021, which was being credited now in the entry natin as credit to equipment held for sale na 285,000. Okay, so there is an additional loss, okay, because we have a lower selling price compared with our current na recording amount for the non-current assets held for sale, which is the fair value. Okay? So yan po yung ating mga entries until the disposal of the equipment which was classified as held for sale, no, of any one corporation. Okay, I hope na nasundan po natin. Again, if there are questions, please let me know lang po on our respective chat boxes. Okay, so let's proceed with example number 2. Okay, so here now we are being asked again of the journal entries from 2018 to 2020. So on January 1, 2018, an entity acquired a machine at a cost of 400,000 to be used in the ordinary course of business. So that's our original cost. Then the machine has an estimated useful life of 5 years and has no residual value. So first, now let's recognize on January 1, 2018. So debit machine, credit cash, 400,000. Okay, so that's the initial recognition. And on December 31, 2018, so we depreciate. So a debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 800,000. So that's coming from the cost divided by the useful life of 5 years, since wala naman tayong i-deduct na residual value. Okay? The change in the classification happened on December 31, 2019. Okay, so let's still depreciate it, no, until the time of reclassification. So on December 31, 2019, so debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 80,000. Okay, so bago tayo nag-reclassify, we have actually a carrying value of 240,000. Okay, from the cost less the accumulated depreciation of 160,000. So 240,000. But as you can see, no, on such date, on December 31, 2019, the fair value less cost to dispose was 300,000. So remember, in our valuation kanina, your non-current assets held for sale should be classified, okay, and measured, okay, at a lower of the carrying amount and the fair value less cost to sell. So dahil mas mababa po yung carrying amount natin compared with the fair value less cost to sell, then we will just simply ignore the fair value less cost to sell. Okay? So at the time of reclassification, so we will just debit the machine held for sale, which is the carrying value na 240,000, then derecognize the PPE related items such as debiting the accumulated depreciation na 160,000 and credit machine na 400,000. So we will not record any impairment loss kasi hindi naman po mas mababa si fair value less cost to sell. Okay? Then on July 1, 2020, so which is almost 6 months lang after the date of classification, we have already disposed the asset at 290,000. So our entry on July 1, 2020 is debit cash, the 290,000. Then credit the machine held for sale, so which is 240,000. So yun po yung ating carrying value kanina, no, on the date of reclassification. And then we have a gain on sale na 50,000. Okay, so the gain on disposal is again the difference of the selling price and the carrying amount, okay, in our accounting record. So that's our example number 2. Again, if you do have questions, please let me know lang po. Okay, so I hope na clear po sa atin yan, ha. So let me just continue, no, in additional theory. So what if po, kanina kasi we have discussed, no, what if the asset was actually based on cost model, no? Kaya may depreciation siya in the previous I mean the cost model or the original cost less accumulated depreciation. Ngayon naman, what if your particular non-current assets held for sale was reclassified from a revalued asset? Okay, so revalued assets classified as held for sale. So when an entity adopts revaluation model for measurement of the asset, so any classified as held for sale should be revalued to fair value prior to the classification as held for sale. So ayun po, no. So kanina, kung tayo ay magre-recognize ng impairment loss, okay lang 'yan kasi that's the difference of the carrying value and the fair value less cost to sell. However, in this case po, at the time that we have reclassified it, no, from the revaluation model asset recognized, whatever man asset 'yan, no. Sabi po, no, you should first revalue it. So bale kung mayroong increase in the fair value, then it's an additional revaluation surplus. Okay? So we will talk about that later sa example natin. Pero ayun, we should revalue it immediately prior to the classification as held for sale. Then the additional revaluation is equal to the fair value at the date of classification less the carrying amount at that date. Okay, so yun yung ating basis, no? The fair value and then the carrying amount at the date of reclassification. Then, any cost of disposal at the date of reclassification, ito, shall be recognized as impairment loss. So, bali, dun sa revaluation, fair value at sa carrying amount lang. Pero since what we're talking about kanina in the valuation natin for held for sale at held for distribution, it should be the lower between fair value less cost to sell at sa carrying amount. So, if in case that there are any disposal costs which are not considered in computing the revaluation surplus, should be recognized as impairment loss. So yun yung magiging source natin ng impairment loss, yung cost of disposal, okay, and deducted from the assets held for sale. Okay, so magde-debit ka dyan later ng impairment loss and credit ka ng assets held for sale. Okay? Then, however, at the subsequent year, the revalued asset classified as held for sale shall be already measured at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost of disposal na. Okay? So yan yung ating dagdag paalala, no, as to the revalued asset classified as held for sale. So to give you an example, pakita ko po sa inyo. Okay, so prepare daw a journal entry on until 2021. So on January 1, 2020, Mahal Corporation acquired a land at a cost of 4,500,000. So that's the original costs, okay, at the date of purchase. So debit on January 1, 2020, debit land, credit cash, 4,500,000. Okay, to continue, the land is measured at fair value in accordance with the revaluation model. So nag-revaluation model pala si Mahal Corporation with regards to land. Then on December 31, 2020, the fair value of the land was 5 million. So hindi pa naman kinaklassified as held for sale, so we can still revalue it muna on December 31, 2020. So tumaas ba yung value? The answer is yes, no? From 4,500,000 to 5 million. So debit tayo ng land na 500,000 and we credit it as revaluation surplus 500,000. Okay? Then on June 30, 2021, the land was classified as held for sale already. On such date, the fair value was estimated to be 5,600,000. So remember, no, nabanggit natin kanina in the previous slide that when there was a change in fair value at the date of reclassification, then it will be charged as revaluation surplus ulit. Okay, and then the cost of disposal of 300,000 will be charged as impairment loss. So ipakita natin yon. So para sa increase, no, so we debit land at 600,000. So that's the previously valuation natin for the land on December 31, 2020 na 5 million. Okay, less mo siya mula doon sa fair value na 5,600,000. Okay, and credit revaluation surplus na 600,000. Okay, so yun po yung ating recognition ng increase. And then, what will happen is yung buong 5,600,000 will now be charged to our held for sale. So debit tayo ng land held for sale and credit land, no, 5,600,000. Okay? Then after that, hindi pa natin na-recognize yung cost of disposal, di ba? So the cost of disposal will be an impairment loss and reduce our held for sale. So debit impairment loss, 300,000 and credit land held for sale, 300,000. So pag tinanong kita magkano na yung ating value ng held for sale na land on June 30, 2021 at after it was being reclassified, so you have 5,600,000 less 300,000. So it will now be 5,300,000. Kasi di ba mas mababa naman talaga yung 5,300,000 na fair value less cost to sell natin. Compared it with our previous carrying amount which is 5,600,000. Okay? So ayan, 5,300,000. Then on December 31, 2021, the land was now sold at 5,350,000. So how do we record the sale of land? So on December 31, 2020, so debit tayo ng cash, the selling price of 5,350,000. Then de-recognize the land held for sale, which is na-mention ko kanina, the fair value less cost to sell of 5,300,000. Then we still have a gain naman of 50,000. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, no? And since class, wala na sa atin yung land. So we have already derecognized it. Same with our retained earnings, which was mentioned before sa ating PPE discussion, na if you have derecognized your asset or baka nagpo-proportional ka, di ba, na transfer from revaluation to retained earnings, then at the date of disposal, dapat wala na po tayong matitirang revaluation surplus. So yung ating buong revaluation surplus kanina na hindi naman transfer sa retained earnings should now be transferred to retained earnings. So we debit revaluation surplus na 1,100,000. So yun yung dalawa kanina, no, yung 500,000 initially, no, on December 31, tapos nung nag-reclassify or bago mag-reclassify na 600,000. So all in all, we transferred or credit to retained earnings na 1,100,000. Okay? So I hope that that is clear. No? Again, if you do have questions, please let me know lang po on our respective chat boxes. So that's our example related to the revalued assets. Okay? Sige, so let me continue with our discussion. Okay, so na-mention natin kanina, no, as one criteria of becoming a non-current assets held for sale is that there should be unlikely plan to have a significant change in terms of our intention. Okay, so what if there is a change in our plan or intention to sell it or even to distribute to the owners that particular non-current assets? Okay, so ano pong gagawin natin? If the entity reclassifies the asset or disposal group directly from held for sale, okay, to being held to distribution to owners or directly from being held for distribution to owners, then held for sale. So ito ay ano lang po, no, parang transfer lang from held for sale to distribution or distribution to sale. Okay, so ang sabi po under paragraph 26, no, the change in classification is considered as continuation of the original plan of disposal. So even though parang nagpalit lang tayo ng intention na ibebenta dapat natin within 12 months to distribution or distribution, then nagpalit tayo to sale, it's still the original plan na i-dispose natin yung asset. And that's what will happen kung it is ganon yung mangyayari, wala pong magbabago doon sa ating naging mga measurements since it is just considered as a continuation of the original plan of disposal. Okay? Pwede pala yun, no? Na kung ayaw mo na siyang ibenta, pamigay mo na lang sa owners or pamigay na lang sa owner pero gusto mo na siyang ibenta, possible pala yun. Yes, no, that's based on paragraph 26 and we will not do anything, no, aside from transferring lang yung title kasi yung title is held for sale pag sale and held for distribution naman pag distribution. Okay? Pero in terms of valuation, no, we will still continue as is based on the original plan to dispose kasi halos hawig naman po yung mga criteria natin kanina in the held for sale at saka held for distribution. Okay? Pero what if, no, it ceases already, no, the intention to sell or to distribute. So what will happen? The entity shall measure the non-current assets held for sale or disposal group that ceases to be classified as held for sale or held for distributions to owner. So mangyari lang yan if we do not meet anymore the requirements under paragraph 7 and 8 kanina or with regards to distribution then. And then possible na rather than selling it or distributing it to owners, we just want to continue na lang na gamitin siya in the operations of the business. So that's a cause why we cease or stop the classification as held for sale. Okay, once we do not meet the requirements as stated in IFRS 5. Okay, so the valuation of it would be the lower of the carrying amount before the asset was classified as held for sale or distribution, adjusted by any depreciation, amortization, or revaluation that would have been recognized, okay, if the asset was not classified as held for sale or distribution. So parang babalikan mo yung carrying value as if wala pong nangyaring reclassification to held for sale. Okay, so as is siya from the original classification niya. Kung dine-depreciate mo siya, i-depreciate mo siya mula dun sa umpisa, okay, ignoring now the effect na hindi i-depreciate kasi naging held for sale or even i-amortize, or pag nag-revaluation model ka, then of course considering the revaluation. Okay, so isa pa lang yon, carrying amount. And the recoverable amount at the date of subsequent decision not to sell or to distribute. Okay? So, yung recoverable amount natin is, as mentioned to you previously in our mga discussion then in other standards, then that would be the the higher between the value in use at saka our fair value less cost to sell. Okay? So, yun po yung ating valuation pag ibinalik po natin siya sa kanyang original na classification, or hindi na po natin siya dapat i-classified as held for sale or as distribution to owners. Okay? So the lower between the carrying amount, okay, as if na walang nangyari, and then the recoverable amount. Okay, so I hope that that is clear. So let's take a look in an example now related to this. So you are asked to prepare the entries from 2019 to 2021. So Nasaktan Incorporated purchased a machine for 800,000. That's the original cost. Okay, on January 1, 2019, with a useful life of 10 years and no residual value. Okay, on December 31, 2020, which is 2 years after the date of purchase, okay, it was now classified as held for sale. So entryhan muna natin on January 1, 2019. So debit machine, credit cash. So that's the initial recognition. And then on December 31, 2019, we just simply debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 80,000. So that's the cost divided by the useful life. So 80,000 ang depreciation for year. And then on December 31, 2020, bago tayo mag-reclassify, we depreciate it muna, no? Kasi naka 1 year din siya. So debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 80,000. Okay? So magkano yung carrying value natin bago natin siya i-transfer? So originally, it was having a cost of 800,000. And then meron tayo accumulated na totaling 160,000. So the carrying amount would be 640,000. Di ba? Yun yung ating carrying value. And then remember na pag nilagay natin siya as held for sale, it should be the lower between the carrying value and the fair value less cost to sell. The fair value less cost to sell daw, or sorry, the fair value of the machine on December 31, 2020 is 550,000 and the disposal cost is 20,000. So bali ang lumalabas nito is that we have 530,000 as the fair value less cost to sell. So mas mababa yon kesa sa ating carrying value, thus it should be recorded at 530,000. So ang gawin muna natin, i-transfer muna natin yung buong carrying amount. So debit machine held for sale na 640,000. Then de-recognize your accumulated depreciation. So debit accumulated depreciation 160,000 and credit the machine 800,000. Okay? And then for the write down from the carrying amount na 640 to the fair value less cost to sell, so debit impairment loss, credit machine held for sale na 110,000. So yun po yung 530,000 comparing it with the carrying amount na 640,000. So may impairment loss po tayo. So if I asked you magkano na po yung valuation ng ating asset on December 31, 2020, the answer would be the 530,000. Kasi we have already 640 minus 110 for the machine held for use. Okay? So I hope nasusundan niyo po ako ha. Again, if you do have questions, please let me know. Okay? So let's continue. On um, December 31, 2021, the fair value of the machine is 610,000. Okay? And sorry, wait lang. Okay, sorry. To continue, on December 31, 2021, the fair value of the machine was 610,000 and the cost of disposal is 30,000. Okay? And on the same date, the entity believed that the criteria for classification as held for sale can no longer met. So, explicit naman na sinabi dito that we cannot meet already the requirements, thus we should revert it back to the machine, no? Accordingly, the entity decided not to sell it but to continue use it. Okay, so ibalik natin siya sa machine. So paano bang gagawin natin? So first, no, before tayo magkaroon ng um, transfer to its original classification na ang sabi natin kanina, 'di ba? The valuation should be the lower between our carrying amount as if walang nangyari, and then the recoverable amount at the date of reclassification. So, ang given lang naman sa atin is the fair value less cost to sell. So, this is amounting to 580,000. Okay? Okay, the recoverable amount was 580,000. Then we compare it. Okay? So, ikukumpara natin siya doon sa carrying amount as if hindi siya na-classified as held for sale. So, kung babalikan natin, we have 640,000 which is yung carrying value on December 31, 2020 nung bago tayo nag-classified as held for sale. And then, yung hindi po na-take up na depreciation in 2021 kasi naka-still classified pa rin siya as held for sale. So, minus 80,000. So, its carrying value on December 31, 2021, kung hindi sana natin siya classified as held for sale or using the original classification na PPE, it should be 560,000. Then, comparing it with the recoverable amount na na-mention kanina na 580,000. So comparing that, that is having a lower value para sa carrying value, okay, if not classified as held for sale. So ito po yung magiging valuation natin pag binalik po natin siya sa ating original classification na PPE. Okay? But please take note that you need to compare it kasi in our previous recording on December 31, 2020, kung babalikan natin yung previous slide kanina, no, our valuation was actually at 530,000, di ba? Yun yung ating fair value less cost to sell kanina. So the difference of the should be recognized na measurement natin ng machine based on the lower of the carrying amount and the recoverable amount and the carrying value from the previous year or the latest na carrying value na available sa atin na 530,000, then we will be recognizing again on reclassification. Okay? So, paano pag mas mataas yung carrying value? So, pag mas mataas yung carrying value, then may loss on reclassification ka. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin dito, since we have a gain on reclassification, then we will just be recognizing it. So, debit machine held for sale na 30,000. Kasi kailangan nating emit yung value eh. Diba? The machine held for sale in 2020 was 530,000. Eh dahil kailangan nga natin ma-meet yung ating value na amounting to 560,000. So, magdadagdag tayo. So, plus 30,000, which is yun yung gain on reclassification. So that's debit machine held for sale na 30,000. So bali magiging 560,000 na yung ating valuation on December 31, 2021. Then we credit the gain on reclassification. So pupunta po yan sa ating profit or loss. Okay? And then after that, no, ma-recognize mo yung gain on reclassification, then you are now ready to transfer it in its original classification na PPE. Okay? So debit na tayo ng machine, which should be 560,000 based on our concept of valuing it, no, under kaninang binasa natin na it should be the lower between the carrying amount and the recoverable amount. Okay? And then credit na tayo ng held for sale na 560,000. Okay? So wala na yung held for sale natin. It will now be continually used as machine under the cost or carrying amount na 560,000. Okay, so I hope that that is clear, no? So, ang lesson learned natin dito, once we reclassify it, no, una, check nyo muna ano yung mas lower between the carrying value if not classified as held for sale at saka yung recoverable amount. And then, check, no, and compare the considered value, okay, yung lower between the two ng recoverable and carrying amount, compare it with the carrying value recorded from the previous period natin or previous entry natin about the held for sale. So kapag mas mataas yung ating valuation compared with the recent na carrying value available sa atin, then there is a gain. Pag mas mababa yung the measurement based on the lower between the carrying amount and recoverable amount kesa sa carrying amount as held for sale, then we will have a loss on the classification. Basta ang itatransfer natin doon sa ating asset, okay, for continuous use na or yung original na pinanggalingan natin should be the lower between the carrying value without held for sale classification at saka recoverable amount. Okay? And to fulfill the last requirement, kasi may 2022 pa po tayo. So on December 31, 2022, i-depreciate pa po natin yung asset. So we will just apply the concept natin ng change in accounting estimate. So our depreciation would be 80,000. Credit accumulated depreciation 80,000. So parang yung original din, no? Kasi it's 560,000 na ating carrying value divided by the remaining useful life of 7. So paano naging 7? Kasi in 2019, it's 10 years. So 19, 20, and then 21 yung natapos. So 3 taon. So we still have remaining 7 years. So that's also 80,000. Okay? And then magde-depreciate na siya until matapos siya or baka i-classified ulit as held for sale. So pwede naman yun. Pero you will apply the same concept that we have done kanina in classifying from a PPE na or non-current asset to a held for sale. Okay? So I hope that that is clear. Again, if you do have questions, please let me know. So continue lang po. So just in case, no, okay, in paragraph number 13 and 14 of IFRS number 5, there were provisions, no, about non-current assets that are to be abandoned. Hindi lang pala love life ina-abandon. Non-current assets din pala. Corny ni sir, no? Pero anyways, ano nga bang gagawin pag it's abandoned already? So an entity shall not classified as held for sale yung isang non-current assets or disposal group to be abandoned. Okay? So it will end yung classification natin as held for sale or held for distribution pag i-abandon na natin. Now, an entity shall not account for the non-current assets that have been temporarily taken out of use as if it had been abandoned. So, hindi rin natin pwedeng i-classify siya as held for sale if it was just taken out of use and then inabandon lang saglit pero gagamitin naman. Since ang original intention is not to sell naman but to abandon or just to abandon it for a while and then we will just use it continuously after you have been abandoned that asset. Okay, so hindi kayo pwede mag-classify as non-current assets held for sale for those that you are intending to abandon. Kasi kung babalikan nyo ulit yung paragraph 7 and 8 ng ating mode of classification, di ba, it would just be classified as held for sale or distribution if there is a plan to sell or distribute it. Okay, and not to abandon. So I hope that that is clear. And lastly, no, so how do we present our non-current assets held for sale or distribution sa ating financial statement? So kanina po, we have already discussed the measurement. So how do we present it naman? So a non-current assets held for sale or distribution shall be classified as a current asset. So current asset po sila ha, kasi the intention is to dispose them within 12 months. Di ba, pag within 12 months as per IAS number 1, di ba, they are considered now as current. Okay? And then, please take note that assets of disposal group shall be described as non-current assets held for sale presented separately as a single amount under current assets. So pag meron kayong disposal group, 'di ba? It includes various assets including as well uh, some liabilities in case na may liability, no? Pero for those assets in the disposal group, one line item lang po tayo, no? And it will be classified also as current asset. Okay? And then as to the liabilities naman, nakasama dun sa disposal group, baka kasi yung PPE mo, no? Nakasama sa disposal group, may utang ka pa pala doon na kailangan bayaran, then the liabilities as part of the disposal group shall be prescribed as a liability directly associated doon sa ating non-current assets held for sale in the disposal group, and it will be classified as a single line item separately under current liabilities. Okay? So I hope that that is clear, no? So yan po yung ating discussion ng non-current assets held for sale and distribution. Again, if you do have questions, please let me know lang po on our respective chat boxes. Okay, so I'll see you on our next video lecture. Kamsahamnida, sayonara, bye-bye, have a great day.